Have you ever seen that SNL sketch where like the dad has bought like a Lexus December to Remember? And he's made this big purchase, and it turns out he's been out of work for a long time, and he's an alcoholic, and he borrowed money from his neighbor who's banging his wife.
Sounds like a Tim Robinson sketch. No, I haven't seen it.
It's very good. It sort of calls out the absurdity of buying a car for your spouse for Christmas.
What did that just popped into your head?
Hello, and welcome to Expected Own Goals, a December to Remember. I'm your host, Eric Morgan.
I am Evan Davis. It is the XOG December to Remember sales event. We are doing a big discount on our Patreon subscriptions all month. You can get an annual subscription for 50% off for all new members throughout the month of December. We got a link in the show notes if you've been Patreon curious, but you've never actually bit the bullet for whatever reason. Maybe this is a perfect time to jump on board. You'll get a whole year, $30 for the entire year. You get 4 bonus episodes every single month. You will get access to our Discord. You will get a whole bunch of fun goodies. You'll get the main feed ad-free, both the video and the audio versions, for only $30 a year. That seems like quite the steal. So what better way to conclude a hellish year than becoming a member of the XOG Patreon family?
Yeah, I was surprised when you suggested it. That's how big a steal it is. Let's move on and talk the U.S. women's national team and then some little transfers banging around the league and some news and notes. The U.S. women, housed Italy the way I house a nice pizza pie. I know it's so bad, but I did have great pizza over Thanksgiving. God. Pizza Shoals, Portland, Oregon. What a place. That said, the U.S. women shut out Italy 5-0 over 2 legs.
They did.
Was that performance, Evan, about what you expected based on the underlying stuff? Better than or worse than what we should have expected?
This feels about right.
Yeah, I kind of think it's about right too. I said this on the Discord and truly, you know what? People, come for me if you like. I think the United States would have won the Euro last summer had they been involved in such a thing. And would have beat up wee little England, because what they did to Italy was as utterly dominant as any team against a Euro semifinalist.
Yeah, I mean, England's better than Italy, especially in a competitive setting.
Sure.
So I don't know how much we want to push that counterfactual. This it's the end of the year. These are the last 2 American-based games we're going to be talking about this season.
Yeah, these games are way less important.
Yeah, Hayes was hazing with. Couple of new debuts, brought back a couple of players who've been absent from the U.S. for a while. Italy looked like Italy probably should, I mean, their run to the semifinal was a little bit of a fluke over the summer. Sorry to say it. But they are still a couple of steps behind, I think, the elite. And this is sort of fresh in my mind because I've been going through basically every single friendly that top sides have played over the last 4 cycles in that sort of post-Olympics to the end of the following year interregnum. We talked about that on the last U.S. episode in October. It's clear that Italy is still a couple of steps behind. Like when Julie Foudy's on the broadcast asking to see Cristiana Girelli and Barbara Bonansea, you know that there are probably a couple of pieces of attack that Italy needs to continue to develop. Now, they did have a little bit of a flourish in the first half of the first game, a particularly dangerous chance that Sofia Cantore can't quite finish in the 9th minute. Obviously, there is the counterattack that got Gurmad that everyone will talk about and remember. So they had a couple of moments, but also you can just chalk that up to the U.S. once again shuffling the deck in the back and trying to find new combinations and new chemistry that probably wasn't quite there. So yeah, I mean, this was a game to get Naomi Girma real starting minutes. This was a game to have a look-see at Kate Wiesner, who got the start in the second game. Because of Fallon Tullis-Joyce getting injured, that just meant that Claudia Dickey got an extra start, so you get more tape on her. Yeah, the attack never really had to get out of second gear, and it showed. I mean, Catarina Macario is probably going to win the U.S. Female Player of the Year award because she scored 8 goals in 2025.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Yeah. Bagged a brace in the first game, bagged another one in the second. Olivia Moultrie had a hell of a chance, in the first 45 seconds?
Sure, maybe it bled into the 50th second or into the 50s, but yes, Olivia Moultrie just continued what she's been doing all season on a nice ball cut back from Rose Lavelle to put the U.S. up and to change the game state of the first fixture almost immediately, and that was more than enough for very long stretches. Do you feel like, I mean, like Macario obviously I think has put together not only just a pretty remarkable year, having played, about 70% of the available minutes, 60, 70%
About
of the
that,
available. Yeah, which is special for her, but also just a year where she sort of was consistently healthy, which in and of itself is hugely, hugely impactful.
Yeah, I mean, she hasn't had one of those years since 2021. So, and it's also one of the reason why, like in October, we were like, she is one of the very few like completely undroppable like inning starters for this group, because
and she proved it.
Yeah, I mean, when you are lacking a center forward, as the team is right now, with Sophia Wilson, and also kind of maybe in the broader depth chart, she can do that job. When you just make her a false nine and allow her to come deep and play off the dribble, like she's great. I mean, she's just great. And we wondered what it would be like after almost 2 years away, but like she's living up to the hype, man.
Yeah, there was a little bit of an adjustment period, but I think now that she is many months into consistent fitness, yeah, you sort of see what a dynamic player she is, and highlighted in all the ways in which she can get at you. She got at Italy with goal scoring this time round, but also what tremendous vision and touch. And I think maybe we should call her and Moultrie as like a 10-9 combo, like all brakes, no gas, because neither of them are the fleetest of foot. But what they will do is sort of interplay you to absolute death.
Yeah.
And I think against a team like Italy, and maybe this is instructive for the future, against a team that's going to play you really deep, you don't actually need all that pace in behind. You need players that can tear seams in deep-lying defenses.
And also, 2 years ago, when Vlatko Ananovsky tried to implement something sort of similar, he had no incision available to him because Macario wasn't healthy, and Moultrie had yet to break into the team. And it's pretty clear that they are the two best kind of pure string pullers. I mean, Rose Lavelle is her own thing, but
also a player whose fitness has allowed her to sort of show her quality once again.
For sure, there is going to be a way that you don't have to stress so much about like the low block problem when you have the type of passing vision that Moultrie and Macario offer. You know, maybe we talk about sort of like 2025 for the U.S. as a whole. Emma Hayes made a comment before the game, I think to Julie Foudy, about how you just get to a point where the team just kind of starts to pick itself. And I think there's actually some pretty interesting trends emerging just based on the amount of playing time that players got now that 2025 is over, and we can see who Hayes really began to favor. And it's not always the players that you might think of or that we groused about. I mean, just in this last window, that got underlined further with like Lily Reel getting another start, Lily Johannes getting another start, Jaden Shaw getting a full 90 minutes, which, I mean, and scoring a goal, a bit of a fluky from distance goal, but still, a fun finish all the same. More time for Claire Hutton. And all of a sudden, there are some buckets that are now forming at each position group in terms of who's getting the minutes relative to the amount of games they were available. So I've been tracking people's playing time relative to their availability. So you don't count the summer window against the Europe-based players because they just got the window off. You don't count windows where certain players are injured. You try to adjust for like 3-game windows because nobody plays all 3 games. But the way it shakes out, all of a sudden, it looks like maybe Naomi Girma and Emily Sonnet could be the center back pairing, depending on like what you think of Tiernan Davidson when Tiernan Davidson comes back.
Yeah, I still think Davidson's probably the choice.
Sure,
if she comes back healthy.
I'm just saying this is like the first time where Sonnet has had a sustained level of starts when Hayes could have gone younger and often did by working Tara McKeown into things and giving Jordan Bug looks. Again, the second game against Italy, but it seems like it's going to be Sonnet if it's not Davidson. And then you go further back on the depth chart, like Lily Johannes and Claire Hutton played more minutes per available game than Lindsay Heaps did this year. That's kind of interesting.
Agreed.
You know,
It's funny.
I don't think I would have expected that in January or February.
I don't love the phrase "the team picks itself," but let's let it be as tongue-in-cheek as it is. There are only a handful of players in the Emma Hayes system that I am still surprised are getting sizable minutes, but I think Lindsay Heaps is probably at the top of the heap for that one. And it is interesting that she's only played, 53% of the available minutes she's had. Fewer minutes than Coffey or Hutton. Do I feel like Lindsay Heaps is on her way out?
It's
and Johannes.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. Coffey, you expected, but the fact that Hutton and Johannes both have about 8 minutes per available game more under their belts this year than Heaps does. I am sitting up in my chair, especially when we saw like how Lily Johannes was able to like facilitate attacks from deep this weekend against Italy.
Yeah, I guess the question really becomes like, what is Lindsay Heaps' role? Because she increasingly seems like this has been the Lindsay Heaps problem for a little bit with the U.S. women's national team. She just seems detached from everyone else's collective play a lot of the time. And I am beginning to wonder how much of that Emma Hayes is logging or noticing, because I think that Lindsay Heaps, the personality, is obviously a big part of this U.S. women's national team setup and is, or at least appears to be, roundly admired by all of her teammates. But Lindsay Heaps, the player, really doesn't contribute a ton defensively anymore. And if she's not clicking in attack, what is her function? And is there a role that she is actually not even first best in, but like second best in? Because I think that all of the emerging players at the 10 and all the options at the 10, I think have possibly eclipsed her. And then when you start thinking about her at the 8, what Rose Lavelle's doing in terms of her work rate, and then what you're getting out of the sort of double pivot in midfield, it sort of feels like Heaps is square peg round hole. What are your thoughts on the Lindsay Heaps of it all?
We've been saying it all year that she's been a square peg in a round hole, and that Hayes is just relying on her seniority and her locker room presence to keep picking her, which is why I was a little bit surprised when I sat back and looked that, you know, she's played 53 and a half minutes per available game, and Hutton and Johannes 61 and 62 minutes respectively, and that number went down pretty significantly. It's rare that Lindsay Heaps doesn't play both games in a 2-game window or 2 games out of 3 in a 3-game window, and she just was completely benched in the first game against Italy. And maybe that's just rest. It's been a long year, yada yada. That could be part of it. I
mean, but she's mid-season, you know, like
exactly.
Yeah,
and she got a break in late June, early July for that window. So I think that maybe Hayes is starting to see the writing on the wall, that she's going to be 33 when the World Cup starts, and Johannes is starting to find some measure of, you know, on-field maturity, and Hutton is, you know, what more do we need to say about Hutton other than the fact that, like, she continues to be an incredible, like, on mic presence as well. Like, she gave the halftime interview in I think, game 2, and just, you know, 19 years old, speaking like a seasoned pro.
What was that little factoid that got dropped? That she won her state's varsity soccer tournament as a 12-year-old, you know, like as a 12-year-old high schooler, you know, like, you know, in a program noted for its prodigies, Claire Hutton is another one of its prodigies, and very much feels like, both in the way she plays and in the way she comports herself, like a mid-career pro, as opposed to.
I can't remember which goal Hayes was referring to in the post-game presser. It might have been Macario's goal in the second game, which Johannes assisted that one, and she said that, like, I've been waiting 18 months for us to do something like that. And that is telling me, if you want to be charitable to Hayes, that, like, she thinks that things are sort of falling into place. And if that's the case, then just look at the players she seems to be trusting in those moments. And it's not
Yeah.
necessarily Lindsay Heaps.
First off, let's give a grade for this calendar year for the U.S. women. Where are you at with it?
I guess I'll say like I'll maybe grade a little bit on the curve and say it's probably like a B plus.
Yeah, I was going to give it an A minus. I think
Yeah,
that
I mean,
there have been.
I'm not going to push back on an A minus, quite frankly. Like it was a year of a dip in raw results, which again I can
Don't matter. Yeah.
I can demonstrate because their goal scoring is like way down relative to like this same sort of section of the cycle, the post Olympics to the end of the following year kind of window, that 14-month period. But they got a whopping 61 minutes out of Triple Espresso, one Trinity Rodman start all the way back in April. So like, what can you really take from that? And they got a ton of playing time for Johannes, for Alyssa Thompson, for Hutton to just continue to bed in. Lily Reel and Avery Patterson now seem like they're both sort of at the top of the heap, no pun intended, for left back. And if that can work, if you think that you can make Reel stick, who's a natural left footer, that might have solved that problem. Again, we're a broken record all year. This getting senior minutes in Jordan Bugg's legs and other players like her, in Sam Maze's legs, I think was all really, really important. I think this is a weird cycle, not just because it's the interregnum year where you're not playing any competitive games, but it's also weird because these are the fewest games in this post-Olympics to the following year, 14-month period, where the U.S. played top competition. They played 4 games against strong sides in those 14 months. By comparison, 2015, 7 games, 2019, 9 games, 2023, if you move it up to, post 2021, 7 games. And all of that reduction comes from the fact that you can't play European teams anymore. They played one good European team. And by the way, I'm not counting the Netherlands because I don't think the Netherlands are a good team right now. I'm counting the one game of England. That's it. The UEFA Women's Nations League has just completely taken away a large chunk of opportunity for the U.S. to continue to play strong sides on a regular basis.
It's true.
And so it's hard to know sort of where they stand. What we can tell you is that, like, yes, scoring is down for this period of friendlies relative to other cycles, but the drop-off isn't actually from 2023 to now or 2019 to now. The drop-off is 2015 to 2019, where you go from 2.3 goals per game against strong sides to 1.4 goals per game against strong sides. Because the competition quality got better. Like that's all there is to it. So I don't know what to say about the performances because it's all friendlies. I want to really drill down on like why none of these games fucking matter. I did a comparative study with every single sort of like top side and like how they did against top sides in this post-Olympics year and a half before the World Cup window. And like in 2015, the best team by goal difference per game against strong sides was the U.S. Okay, fine. They won the World Cup that year. Great. And in 2023, the strongest team by that measure was England. And they made the World Cup final and only lost it 1-0. Okay, fine. Do you want to know who the best team in 2019 was by this measure? Australia.
Yeah, it was going to be something. It was going to be something a little bogus. Yeah,
and
it's
not even, and it's not even like they were benefiting from like a small sample size. They played 7 games in those 14 months against strong sides.
Yeah,
7 games against strong sides in those 14 months. Like, I think France played like 9 or 10. Germany played 9 or 10. The U.S. played 9. Like, it's not as though they were getting a bump from playing significantly fewer games than better sides. They just played really, really well in those friendlies. And then they get bounced in the round of 16. Like, there's just no correlation to how you do in these games to how you're going to do in the World Cup.
No, it's so funny. My grade is almost entirely divorced from the results themselves this year.
Sure, as it should be.
Yeah. No, as it
but I think
should
a lot
be.
of people but a lot of people I don't think that way, which is why we have the constant it's so over, we're so back swings when friendly windows happen. And I have the evidence here to demonstrate that this is just not something that you can correlate to future World Cup success.
What I will say is, like, had the U.S. women gone through a period that resembled, say, the U.S. men over the same period recently, yeah, maybe I'd be concerned if they were dropping, like, gimme games to not very good teams consistently. Then I'd have cause for concern. Right now, I'm just not going to sweat how many losses, yada, yada, a team that is consistently destroying or dominating their opposition end up pulling. Like, I am not going to be, like, results pilled with the U.S. women's national team 2 years from a World Cup or a year and a half from a World Cup.
Yeah,
What I am going to be encouraged by is that Emma Hayes played, 50 different players this year?
She gave caps to 43 different players.
She gave first caps to 24?
Yeah, in the last 12 months, which is the most since 1985 when the team was formed and 17 players got debuts.
This is where the A comes in, like the A part of the A. Like, she's just, and she is seeing essentially everyone we would want to see. And that goes all the way to Jalen Howell getting a call up. I think where the A
getting minutes. She got 12 minutes at the end of the game, second game.
There is room for improvement. I'm not handing out A pluses, full stop. Don't believe in them. There is room for improvement. I still don't love some of her selection, but it's like an A minus with an incomplete here. She saw essentially every player in the system I was curious about, and though it takes her a little bit longer than it should with some, Corbin, Schrader, Albert, to get them out of the system, has done a decent job in not calling back in players who, whose performance hasn't warranted they're calling back in.
Yeah. I mean, Corbin Schrader, the last time she got capped was in April?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, to also give you some context, like in the 18 months where she's been the gaffer, 30 games, she has started 50 different players. The second place on that list as U.S. head coach is 36 players.
Yeah.
Like, she just torched it. Again, she creamed Mike Ryan, who is in second place,
yes,
in terms of giving first caps when he formed the team. Like 27 players across her first 30 games to his 17 when they went to that tournament in Italy in the summer of 1985. Like, it is absolutely absurd. This is what, again, we've been saying it for every window. This is what you're supposed to do in this year when nothing matters for you.
Also, none of this guarantees that the U.S. women will win a World Cup in 2027 or even necessarily outperform what they did at the last World Cup. Small sample elimination.
Because there's nothing predictive that you can draw from results of friendlies like this.
That said, and I think this is what's important, she is bringing in, Emma Hayes is consistently bringing in the players that many would say pass the eye test, but I actually think that largely the data would say are the right people to be in there. Certainly the goalkeeper position. She's making, like, really smart choices here. Who's to say who ends up winning this? Claudia Dickey, I think, didn't do herself any harm.
Well, and also it's clear that she doesn't have preferences in her own mind, because on minutes per available game, it's a 45-45 split between Dickey and PTJ. The only thing we can say is that, like, Mandy McGlynn seems to have fallen out of favor after catching everyone's eye at the end of last year.
She seems to be third. But I also think, and this is the culture you really want to build, no one is beyond the pale should their performances improve. Jaden Shaw was back. Jalen Howell was back for the first time in 1,300 days. If there is a player who is doing something remarkable at club level, they will get called in, regardless of necessarily, like, what we may perceive Emma Hayes' biases to be. And, Ali Sentner and Corbin Schrader not being a part of this team for its final friendlies of the year, both good.
Who knows how long either of their exiles will last.
Yeah, and by the way, it's not exile. It's both of them. Look, I hope it's exile for Schrader because of stuff that happens off the pitch. But Sentner seems like a perfectly lovely person. And if she figures it out in her club game and takes that next developmental step. Olivia Moultrie had a down year, wasn't a part of the club, comes back, goes gangbusters, is there. If Ali Sentner next year, cuts out the long range shooting bullshit and starts creating goals for herself and others, yeah, please, with open arms, bring her back.
Yeah. No, it's what is clear is what you discussed, I think, on the last episode on main feed, which is that like good process is what we care about, and this
absolutely
is good process.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of whatever future results are coming their way, this is how you should be running a national team.
Yeah, if we seem like the boring, even keel ones here, good. Like we should be the boring, because they're running a boring, even keel process right now. They are like not getting too high on any one player. They are developing players appropriately, bringing them along. They are spreading the minutes out so that should you need to call on someone, all of these people have been blooded. I basically think for taking on one of the hardest jobs in professional soccer, not just women's professional soccer, a national team with a massive reputation. Emma Hayes is handling this. It hasn't always been perfect. There have been things that we have, I think, rightfully criticized her for, but is handling this about as well as could be hoped for. You know what? I'll say this. If it turns out in 2027, the entire, or like 90% of the roster is comprised of players that had a fair number of minutes this year, I'll bump that A- to an A retroactively. Do you see spaces for improvement for her? Like, where is the criticism?
I mean, I don't know.
Outside of like, we're not scoring enough goals yet.
Yeah, and also I don't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
So no,
also,
I mean, the one thing is, I wish Izzy Rodriguez had seen some action.
Yeah, again, it's like little personnel.
Yeah, stuff around the margins.
Yeah, it's really encouraging. Emma Hayes was at the NWSL Championship. She is watching what is going on in this league in the U.S. and monitoring those performances. And she has people that are doing the same. She's also not calling in European players on high-profile teams that are not playing well. Right. There is not a lot of preferential treatment going on. Look, it's little critiques at this point. It's not big ones.
Yeah. Yeah, just to like give people context, if they don't feel like the U.S. is really performing up to scratch, just even if you look at it in the aggregate, they are in 5th place among top teams performance of the last 14 months on goal difference per game, and they are well within the margin of error for 3 of the 4 people, Brazil, France, and England, above them. Only Spain has been like blowing teams out of the water in aggregate when they play strong sides.
What else is new?
But exactly. What else is new? And again, it ultimately just doesn't matter. So, speaking of Spain, they won the UEFA Women's Nations League.
The Nations League,
I still don't get it.
Yeah,
I still don't really understand it.
By the way, if you think I'm showing some sort of anti-Europe bias, that cool is the same I feel about the She Believes Cup. It's like, cool, great.
Yeah, I mean, it is considered an officially competitive tournament, and so it seems like both the coaches and the players treat it as such, whereas She Believes was always just a friendly tournament.
Sure.
So there is that difference. Yeah. I mean, it's just an opportunity to continue to play strong sides. It is just unfortunate that means there are fewer opportunities for like Brazil and Japan and the U.S. and Colombia,
Australia
to play like the good European sides, and vice versa. It's a little bit incestuous now that UEFA is just keeping everybody sort of in-house, because when you add up the Nations League, you add up Euros qualifying, you add up World Cup qualifying, and those 2 tournaments, and you throw the Olympics on top of it for a couple other European sides to get in, like there's just very little time for you to play outside of your confederation now. If you're Spain or England or France or Germany or Sweden or the Netherlands.
Europe did not field a team for the gold medal game at the Olympics. I do not think it helps European teams to not see the U.S., Brazil, and Japan. In the same way, it is not helpful to the U.S., Brazil, and Japan to not see good European teams.
Yep.
All right. Exactly. Let's move on.
The big news out of that is that like Aitana Bonmati broke her leg.
Yeah, that's really bad.
And she's probably not going to be back until like the Champions League final if she's lucky and if Barcelona are in it. Otherwise, we might not see her for the rest of the year because it's probably she's probably looking at a 5-month recovery.
Will that stop her from winning the Ballon d'Or? I don't know.
Well, it won't be based on playing time that she didn't actually play in. So
we will probably at some point tackle the currently being released top 100 players in the world nonsense list, but let's save that for another day. Let's just pick up the news and notes.
Yeah, Rob Gale got fired.
Rob Gale got fired.
It's very funny. It's very funny.
Is this good process? Like,
well, it's not that. It's not just that. It's that also that his reputation as good in the locker room might not be as on solid ground as we might think. At least in the sense of like the players seem to have decided he wasn't the right fit for them. After they lost the semifinal in the playoffs, he gave a post-match presser and said, he was like, oh, it was just probably one game too many, referring to just like the levels of fitness and injuries that they had been accruing and just how thin the roster was. And then Sam Coffey was like, I mean, not to, slight Rob, but that's a cop-out. And it seems like maybe they were just not, the players and him were just maybe not on the same page anymore, which is the reason why you let him go after he led that decimated roster to a third-place finish in a semifinal berth. Normally, that would buy you some time. But that isn't the case here.
Yeah, he's like a great example of, and this firing is a great example of really assessing what does and does not make your football club work and saying that your manager, who might be a nice guy, isn't really what made this work this year and wasn't really what solved problems last year.
I'm not even sure if it goes that deep. It might have just been like Sam Coffey and Moultrie and a couple other players maybe just took a meeting with Jeff Agus and Lisa Bethel-Mirage and was like, we don't like him. It might have just been simple
we don't like him. It's just we don't think this guy can win. Yeah. Like, we don't think we can win with this guy.
Maybe.
Like, we may like him fine.
Yeah.
But like he feels a lot like a youth coach to me. And the worst part, like, I've heard really nice things about him as a person. The person Rob Gale who lost this job, I feel bad for. The coach Rob Gale, Portland often looked pretty void of a tactical plan and often just looking to take these little marginal edges wherever they could.
Performances as a result were quite inconsistent all year,
and weren't getting better as this season went on. It didn't feel like the Thorns were ever trending in the right direction. They sort of backed into third place as much as one can do such a thing. They obviously overcame a ton in the offseason, but maybe we put our expectations aside and just say, in retrospect, the true talent of the Portland Thorns seemed to be better than we were able to anticipate. And they surely didn't outperform the talent that they had.
No, and the sum total of those performances across 26 regular season games suggested that they were probably about 8th place.
Yeah. And an 8th place coach for the Portland Thorns does not keep the job.
No.
Like, that club has just different expectations. And so I think it's really hard. Obviously, there are lots of manager sackings, and this one feels particularly cruel.
Yeah.
It's not that far from the numbers.
Yeah, and I think also, like, is this really going to be the make or break for Portland in 2026? I'm much more curious about whether or not Sophia Wilson opts in, how they shake up the back line, Nicole Payne obviously moving on. How are they managing the roster now that like some players might be coming back and some others might be moving on? Jeff Agos has quite a task, I think, in front of him.
Yeah, and are they able to attract the level of manager to this position that might actually sway their most important players into staying and committing to this space?
It's interesting timing because if there is any wobble. I mean, they made a bunch of roster announcements today, one of which was their first comment about Sophia Wilson at all.
Which was a non-comment, but
all
yes.
year. It's a non-comment, but I think actually the news is no news is news. That like they are actively engaging with her in negotiations.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what that will come to or what the status of all of that is unclear. But the fact that they are actually talking to her, so much so that like her agent signed off on that statement going out, is notable. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's just the bigger question of like how Agus is going to manage all of this. And Wilson now has like very interesting leverage given the timing of Gail's firing, because she can kind of say like, you want me, I got to be involved in what head coach you bring in. Simple as that. And that's, I think, probably her right. She is the best player on the team and one of the 2 or 3 best players in the country and one of the 5 or 10 best players in the world. So you get that privilege. Because, you know, again, we are staunchly, it's the players that actually matter here.
Yeah, and
not,
I would
not
say,
the coach.
Paradoxically, after that statement, if there were ever a team that has found the depth to cover for the loss of a Sophia Wilson, it's actually kind of Portland this year. Like no team can really lose a Sophia Wilson and be the same, but Portland have at least identified a bunch of interesting players that can, in the aggregate, replace something approaching a Sophia Wilson.
Or, I mean, we'll have to save this for our offseason outlook, but like the underlying data did suggest that they were an 8th place team. So maybe they didn't fully replace Sophia Wilson this year.
No, do you think Sophia Wilson will be back in Portland next year?
I mean, that's my hunch.
I do too. I think
really
she will too.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's going to cost too much for a lot of teams who are up against the cap to keep her in the NWSL. And
well, that's a whole different conversation about what the cap ends up being.
And I also don't really get the sense that she's interested in going to Europe right now. I mean, she just had a baby. That would be a big life shift. Mm-hmm. So I think that probably Portland is where she decides to stay.
Yeah.
But, you know, then Agus and her agent have a lot of work to do to make sure that they've got the room. And I think they do. I mean, I think they've got a little bit more payroll flexibility at the moment. But she's not going to be cheap.
No, not at all. We will do a bigger cap discussion probably as a little bit more news rolls in.
Yeah. Any other?
Right now, no news. Oh, Haley Mace to Orlando.
Yep, that's interesting.
That's a move I really like.
I do too.
For Orlando, in immediately making one of your primary opponents in the league worse in Kansas City. And B, because Haley Mace still has a number of good years ahead of her and offers you a lot of flexibility across that back line. And sort of in that sense, is a perfect Orlando player, given their desire to really be able to run players in multiple positions. I think, especially as Kylie Danner gets older, there's some center back space there. I worry about what happens for Corey Dyke from here.
And Corey Dyke's got 2 years left on her deal, so it might be tricky to move her because she's not exactly like, you know, blue chip material. She needs minutes, so she has to move because she's just not going to get him with Oyan Hernandez and Haley Mace there. And Carrie Abella. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, but there are 2 expansion teams that have pretty threadbare rosters right now, and a number of other clubs that do not currently field fullbacks as good as Corey Dyke.
It's just the size of the deal. Like 2 years, with 2 years of team control, it's just a fairly sizable deal for what is probably like, you know, a league average fullback. So it's going to cost something.
Yeah.
You know.
That said, Orlando gets better through that. Brianna Pinto to Chicago.
Best of luck to her. Best of luck to Chicago. Hope they can figure it out.
I have so many other questions about Chicago, but do I think that like signing Brianna Pinto is a problem? No, I don't. Like I hope they didn't like pay over the odds for her, but we can't know that. That said, Brianna Pinto is a solid professional, and frankly, right now, that's a good thing for Chicago.
Jess Fishlock signed a 1-year deal. Will be 39 years old. Will become the all-time NWSL player in terms of the number of seasons she has stayed committed to the league. Now that Lauren Barnes is retired, that's pretty wild. I wonder how she's going to get used.
She just outlasted everyone, which is impressive.
The thing that's probably going to involve discussions down the road over the next few weeks is Miyabi Moria signing a 1-year deal with Utah via, quote, salary cap exemption, a rule nobody knew existed until this signing was announced.
Yeah. The Miyabi Muria rule, as it will definitely never be known, allows a team to pay 1-year contracts to 4 uncapped players at league minimum salaries. So that buys you $200,000-ish wiggle room.
Mm-hmm. Provided you can find players to take a league minimum deal for 1 year.
I'll say this, between that and Madison Hammond signing for Utah, I don't know if Angel City castoffs are how you want to build a winner. I actually think both Maria and Madison Hammond have solid depth piece qualities that shouldn't be overlooked. But
I also don't know, like, I'm pulling up Miyabi's numbers from this year. Like, my gut tells me that she probably could have commanded more than 1 year at $50,000.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But let me see, like, how did she actually perform this season? Oh, no, she was actually pretty bad.
But I actually think that, like, this is one of those where, like, I'm willing to put aside the numbers and say, having watched a fair amount of her, there's like a talented technical player there that was in a bad system and often ended up in a bad system for her, which is to say 2 systems this year. So, like, I think if your scouting says you see some element of a player there, like, this is really low risk move.
I mean, it's certainly low risk for Utah. I'm just a little surprised that Miyabi would have settled for it, unless she really thinks there were no better offers. She'll be in her age 29 season next year. Again, if you believe the data, it was not a good year. If you don't believe the data, maybe you know.
Or if you just want to caveat it ever so slightly, yeah, sure.
So I don't know, but yeah, now we have the Miyabi rule.
Neely Martin re-signing. That feels obvious and a good signing for Angel City.
It was an extension tacked onto the original deal. So now she's got like 2 years of team control left with Angel City. People really like Neely Martin, and I still don't get it.
I think Neely Martin's fine. Yeah, there have been a lot of player announcement departures. We'll obviously like continue logging these and putting out little pieces of content as meaningful moves happen, but all the action's about to take place as opposed to has taken place yet.
Yeah, we're about to stare down the barrel of everything. I mean,
the pilot light is lit. The stove is
lit
to get hot.
And perhaps the first true spark will be if Haley Carter ends up the GM of another team in this league, which we don't know where that's going to be yet. Wink, wink.
Watch this space. I'm sorry, what?
So we'll see how that all shapes up.
No. Yeah, totally. Like,
anything to say about awards
that happened weeks ago?
Yeah, that we didn't talk about. We've not talked about.
No, we'll do an episode that is our best 11. We'll do our best 11 draft. Do I have anything to say about awards? Most of the players who were nominated were very deserving of their nominations, and some good people won.
Yeah,
it was not. There was no like fire in the hole. What are we doing here?
Yeah,
situation.
Monica was the beneficiary of category fraud.
Right. Like, I don't think it's wrong for Monica to win an award. Midfielder, sure.
Yeah, Tara McKeown would not have been even in my top 3 picks for Defender of the Year, but like the way that the voting works too, that like the media and the industry vote happens before the playoffs start. After the regular season ends, but before the playoffs start. But the fan vote doesn't close until after we're pretty deep into the playoffs. I think affected the vote for Vlatko Andonovski, affected the vote for Kayla Sharples, although you could also argue that Kayla Sharples and Izzy Rodriguez split the vote. The point being that like McKeown and Washington going all the way to the final might have helped McKeown at the end of the day.
I'll say this. You're more down on McKeown than I am, and that's been true this whole time. I don't have any beef with her win. I actually think her numbers improved enough over the course of the season to like that, plus like what I actually see in Tara McKeown, the player. It wouldn't have been my first pick, but I don't mind it as a pick. The Monica Matsukubo thing to me is like when Ridley Scott won Best Comedy for The Martian at the Golden Globes and went comedy. Yeah, it was that, but midfielder,
classic category fraud, as we see at the Emmys and the Golden Globes all the time. So, yeah, I think we're caught up from all the last 2 weeks of business. happy holidays, or happy start to the holiday season. We will be on Patreon later this week, doing a mailbag this week. Please email your questions to expectedowngoals@gmail.com. That's the letter expectedowngoals@gmail.com, or you can DM us or hit us up on Blue Sky at XOwnGoals. That's the letter X Own Goals, and XOG After Dark as well for our cultured number 10s or higher tiered Patreon members will be coming this week as well. So a lot of action coming up, and then we'll be cutting in with any serious emergency breaking news, which will undoubtedly follow us for the rest of the month. So yeah, enjoy the beginning of hearing nonstop garbage holiday music every time you walk into a Target.
Yeah, this is all I want for Christmas is Mute. Like I think
Those songs, yes.
Yeah.
All
right, guys.
Yeah. Talk to you later this week.
Bye.